Welcome to the Extinction Level Event Podcast, Apocalypse Edition. I am your host, the Barrelman. It's only been a couple of days since I recorded my last video, so we don't have a whole lot of little news bits or anything to start off the video. In fact, we don't have any. So we're really just going to get into the main topic now, which was promised last time, which is going to be tsunami. We're going to start out, though, with earthquakes. A little bit about earthquakes, because that's usually what generates tsunamis. Sometimes some of the more dangerous tsunamis, which we will get to a little bit later, are produced by landslides. But more often than not, those landslides are also produced by earthquakes. So I'm on usgas.gov. I've already restarted this podcast because I was expecting a lot more out of this page. It's really more confusing than anything else, and not because it gets into a lot of technical babble, which it does, but it's really trying to explain about 3 or 4 different systems for measuring earthquakes and what they do and why we're measuring this way and that way. And it really just serves to confuse more than educate. And so that's a bad thing. We don't want that. We don't want people to walk away going, well, do I need this number or that number? What does this mean? Or whatever happened to that or anything like that. So I think this is, I'm glad they have this information. It exists, but I think it's really, a lot of this is kind of behind the scenes information we didn't actually need. And they really should have just kept it simplified as far as the public information that's available and what people can look at and measure things by. So just to get a little piece of what I really wanted from here, we're going with a little paragraph that says types of magnitudes. And this is just a quick little blurb about this, just to kind of get a baseline of what we're talking about. Magnitude is expressed in whole numbers and decimal fractions. For example, a magnitude 5.3 is a moderate earthquake, and a 6.3 is a strong earthquake because of the logarithmic basis of the scale. Each whole number increase in magnitude represents a tenfold increase in measured amplitude as measured on a seismograph. So, in other words, they're saying that the 5.3 is 10 times less than the 6.3. They say it, but they don't really spell it out. Like I said, it has information on it, but it's almost more confusing than it is enlightening. Okay, so here's something I Googled, and anybody who's Googled anything lately knows that a lot of times if you ask a specific question, you're not just looking for a website, you get this thing called the AI overview. So it comes from a lot of different places. I'm just going to go with it because, it's got a lot of the information from good sites, but I don't have a specific site to give you. All I can tell you is what I Googled because I wanted to know what the energy output of the Hiroshima bomb was. Just as a comparison. So the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945 released an amount of energy equivalent to about 15 kilotons of TNT, or 63 terajoules. But we're just looking at how much energy is in an earthquake. A magnitude 4.0 earthquake is only equivalent to 6 tons of TNT. So that's a 4.0, right? You get those all the time. Sometimes they're felt, sometimes they're not. Force happen all over the place. Most of them are just irrelevant to our senses, honestly. Or you might think, oh, I rolled out of bed, or, not because you got thrown out, but, I rolled this way or that way, and the bed jiggled a little bit, but that's because I was moving, kind of a thing. Completely dismissible for the most part. And that's 6 tons of TNT explosives. So, a ton, 1,000 pounds, I believe. I should probably look that up, actually, before I keep talking about that. What is a ton? 2,000 pounds. Okay. For some reason, I always thought 2,000. I thought I saw that it was only 1,000. I'm like, oh, well, that's easy to measure. So this is saying 2,000 pounds. Okay, so I've been doing it in half. So I've been giving it half of its due. So 1,000 or a ton is 2,000 pounds. So 6 tons is 6 times 2, so it's 12,000 pounds of TNT. So that's a lot, and that's a 4.0. But it's not Hiroshima level because that was 15 kilotons, so 15,000 2,000 pound TNT boxes, if you will. 7.0 is 199,000 tons, and 8.0 is 6,270,000 tons. And then 9.0 is 99 million tons of TNT. And is the equivalent of about 25,000 nuclear bombs. Okay, so that's good information there. So it says it's equivalent to about 25,000 nuclear bombs. But going by the measurement of terajoules that's in the average, no, this is, so that's the earthquake. So I looked up how much energy is in your average tsunami. And because it's a giant wall of water, the amount of energy is intense. And this is your average tsunami. This isn't like the most incredible, powerful tsunamis. This is just your average tsunami. And your average tsunami, just this big wall of water, is about 6,600 times as strong as the Hiroshima bomb. So getting hit with this wall of water is like getting hit with the better part, right? Like getting hit with the better part of 7,000 Hiroshima bombs. That's the energy we're talking about in this wave. And people are like, oh, I'll just surf it and I'll just ride it out. Really, you're going to ride out almost 7,000 Hiroshima bombs? That's what you're going to ride out? So it's kind of ridiculous there. What people think they're going to survive. So I asked Google how often landslides cause tsunamis. So landslides are responsible for about 3% of tsunamis, though they can be a significant factor in fatal tsunamis. And I believe, I don't see it here, but the number I saw was 20% of fatal tsunamis are actually from landslides. Landslides are a relatively common occurrence, but known instances of tsunami-genic slides are limited, which is also kind of important to say. We don't actually know a ton about this anyway, so the numbers could be bigger. I don't think we're talking the difference between 3% and like 60% or something crazy like that, but it could be a little bit more, right? Which means also the number of fatal tsunamis could be a little bit more as well. Fatalities. Landslides have contributed to 24% of fatal tsunamis. There we go. So there's a better number right there. Water height. The median water height of landslide tsunamis is 4 meters, which is higher than the median height of earthquake tsunamis. So these landslide tsunamis are bigger too. So they don't happen as often, but they're not more deadly than regular tsunamis, right? Because nobody's prepared for a giant wall of water that's 6,000 Hiroshima bombs coming right at them, right? But they're also taller, so they're tougher to get away from as well. You're going to have less escape room to play with to be able to get the hell out of the way of these things. So, and then it just explains why they displace. So, it gives one of these we'll talk about, but it gives examples of landslide triggered tsunamis. One of these we'll look at in a little bit, and that is the tallest recorded tsunami ever, like in history, and that is a landslide tsunami. Now, again, a lot of landslides are triggered by earthquakes. So when you have an earthquake, the earthquake, depending on what kind it is, if it's a slip strike fault, like we just had in Eureka, you're probably not going to get a tsunami or not much of one. But if it's, a megathrust, which are the ones that cause the biggest tsunamis, then you're talking a danger of something bad. But Add to that the fact that you may also have triggered with either of those a landslide somewhere that can also be the cause of a major tsunami. And unfortunately, sometimes nobody's looking for that. If it's a landslide right there and you're already looking for a tsunami from it, then you might be able to see it and you're probably going to be okay as far as any kind of warning you're going to or not going to get, right? And the fact that it's a landslide isn't going to help or take away from the warning time you're going to get one way or the other. But if it triggers a landslide somewhere not necessarily right there where the earthquake is, it may take a little bit of time to realize, oh crap, this didn't trigger a tsunami, but one was triggered anyways. Maybe a different place in the region, and maybe a completely different place altogether that we're not really looking until some people start getting hit with it and dying. So that's one of the dangers of that. So, anyways, in 1958, you have the Lituya. I think it's Lituya Bay. That's a landslide based. 1964 Great Alaskan Earthquake. More than 20 local tsunamis were generated by landslides. That's the one that hit us here in my town of Crescent City. There's a big old plaque. It's a huge thing. There's like a memorial kind of. We don't have a memorial in the town, but the whole town is basically a memorial to this. There's like signs and plaques and stuff all over talking about this thing. They have like an interactive, what do they call it? Like an interpretive trail kind of a thing in our harbor talking about it. There's a place that has a mark that says this is how high the tsunami got. A lot of stuff like that. Our downtown is actually fairly new as far as it came after the 60s. It was kind of a 70s thing, just because all the old houses all got wiped out. Right? There isn't really a whole lot of old houses here because most of those are just, they're gone from that tsunami. And you have the 2015 Icy Bay. A wave with a run up of 600 feet was caused by a mountainside collapse in Tan Ford. Fjord, sorry, in the Tan Fjord. So, and I don't even know about the 2015 one, and obviously I was alive, I was around. So, anyway, so there we go. Landslides, they're really bad. So, I asked how many megathrust faults there are, right? To try to get some sort of like numbers on what's going on there. And it says, due to the nature of subduction zones around the world, there are numerous megathrust faults across the globe, with notable examples including the Cascadia subduction zone off the west coast of North America. That's just right here. This is the big one. You know, instead of San Andreas, the big one is Cascadia. And again, I think it's probably going to be worse because it can be just as big and powerful and be close enough to knock out some of those really big cities. But then we also get the tsunami. And with it being so close, we're not going to get a whole lot of warning. It's going to be like Japan. It's going to be like earthquake. Oh, now we're drowned. So, all right. The Sunda megathrust in the Indian Ocean, the Non-Kai megathrust near Japan. However, the exact number is difficult to pinpoint as many subduction zones are segmented and can have multiple megathrust faults within them. So I thought maybe you'd give me a number like most earthquakes are this, that, but there's only like 5 major megathrusts. But this is the same. They're all over the place. And megathrusts are the ones that are the most likely to cause a giant tsunami. So it says, due to their large size, megathrust earthquakes can generate massive tsunamis. So megathrusts are the tsunami generators, right? They're not the only ones, but they're the big ones. All right, so 1958 Lituya Bay tsunami. So July 10th, 1958, it was a 7.7 earthquake. So it was, what was this? 4 times, 4 times as strong as the 7.3 that hit Eureka. I don't know what kind of fault it is. It might say in here, but just going just off that number I read, It's only four times what the Eureka was, and it created the largest tsunami ever. So it caused significant geological damage in the region, including areas uh, that experienced uplift and subsidence. It also caused rockfall in Lituya Bay that generated a wave with a maximum height of 1,720 feet, the world's largest recorded tsunami. Geologists already documented a total of three other major tsunamis in this location. So those are his prehistoric ones that they're talking about. I tried to look up prehistoric ones, and there was just no real database of information to just give me info on it. If you know about it or a region, you might be able to look that up. But just looking up, you know, large prehistoric tsunamis, nothing really came up at all. Scientists were puzzled for some time about the sheer size, while ultimately it was discovered that a piece of rock, 2,400 feet by 3,000 feet and 300 feet thick, was dislodged from the face of the northern wall of the inlet and had fallen 2,000 feet into the bay. In some respects, it created a similar reaction to that which would have occurred if an asteroid had fallen into the water. Ultimately, there was nothing anybody could have done to prevent any of the five deaths. The earthquake was so strong and the tsunami came so quick that there was not enough time to get to a safe place. It does, however, highlight the importance of documenting such events for posterity and to consider each extreme event when making development decisions for coastal areas in areas with high seismicity or vulnerability to tsunamis. Seismosity, maybe that's what it's trying. I don't know. And so there we go. I saw a little picture that was showing sizes of tsunamis, and it was taller than the Empire State Building. So if you're standing on the Empire State Building, seeing a tsunami come and thinking, "Hey, I'm going to be safe," two things: the power of 6,600 Hiroshima bombs. That's average. It's probably going to be way more than that in this giant wave, right? Um, is going to batter this building, probably knock it the hell over. Not to mention, it is going to hit other buildings, might be knocking those over, maybe knocking them into this building, and yeah, all hell breaks loose. So you're probably not going to be safe. But on top of that, this particular tsunami that we just talked about, going right over the top of you, anyways, even on the top of the Empire State Building. So, all right. So then I wanted to look up the largest historic tsunami that I could think of named. And I just thought, I know this one, let's just look this up. And here's the first global tsunami simulation of the Chicxulub asteroid impact. And talking about the tsunami there, kind of missed it. The 6+ mile wide asteroid, 6+ mile wide, Jesus, that's huge. They said it was like the size of Everest, but I mean, what is Everest? It's not like I see Everest or go out, but I know what a mile is, right? 6+ miles. Jesus, that is huge. Also triggered a mega tsunami with a mile with, okay, triggered a mega tsunami with mile high waves that new research confirms its global impact. So you know how far, basically, I was just talking about this, how far a mile is generally, right? Imagine looking up and the wave is that tall. Like it's practically blotting out the sun when it gets close enough. This thing is a literal mountain of water. There's just going to be just about nowhere to escape. You're going to have I don't expect this to happen like in any kind of regular earthquake or anything like that. It's just insane to think about the size of this thing. And we could have, of course, another impact, and an impact could hit the water. And even if it's not a 6 mile asteroid, even if it's just Chicxulub, which I believe is like thousands of meters, right? Or something like that. It's big. It's a city killer. It's not a planet killer. Even if that hits in the ocean, we're still talking really big, definitely a record breaking tsunami from that thing, right? It'd be great to talk to a physicist and really kind of go over those numbers because that numbers aren't really where I shine. But it would be nice to go over some numbers with somebody who would know how to calculate those correctly and find out if Chicxulub hit, and if it hit in an optimal spot for tsunami generation. So I don't know if the deeper the water is, obviously it doesn't want to be too shallow, or it's not going to, displace enough water because it's going to be displacing enough earth. But I mean, I don't know if being so deep that it doesn't actually hit the bottom before it slows down because there's just that much water maximizes the displacement, or do we want it to go down really far but then hit like a bedrock, and so some of that energy also radiates out and not just into the wave but actually causes a sort of blast wave from the impact of the actual bedrock itself, if that would help. Like that, I don't know. That would be interesting to find out. Waves are mechanical energy. So, how that works on the atomic or even subatomic level, I'm not sure. I haven't found any place to really explain on, say, an atomic, let alone a quantum level, what mechanical energy really looks like. We know how it functions, we know what it does. It's a wave, it bounces off things. One of the big differences between, say, an electromagnetic wave and mechanical energy is mechanical energy needs a medium to travel through, and electromagnetic waves do not. They can go through space. But mechanical energy has to have a medium, which is why wind is also mechanical energy. So to me, that was just kind of important to know when we're talking about energy, what we're talking about. I think it's good to know what it does on an atomic and maybe subatomic level, at least as far as the atom goes, to break it down to nucleus and the electrons and stuff, not necessarily down to, the quantum and gluons and such. But to me, it's important because it lets us know more about what that impact of the wave really does and what kind of energy is released into an object that it hits. So you get some idea of the mechanical energy released into a building, what kind of energy that is, and how much are we talking? Is it going to rattle the building, or is it going to, just push it off its foundation, or is it going to crumble it to 100 million pieces and just kind of splinter any kind of building whatsoever? Like all these really depend on how that energy transfer works. So the average speed of a tsunami depends on the depth of the ocean, but it can range from 20 to 500 miles an hour. So if you heard my last podcast, I talked about this and sitting there on the ledge waiting for the tsunami and kind of calculating this out in my head roughly, that the tsunami that hit was, well, Eureka's 88 miles from here, but it was southwest 45 miles away from Eureka. And even though the west is more longitudinal, so it isn't really farther south from us and not necessarily further away, but it kind of is because it's in the ocean. So if we just say it's around 100 miles, like I said, it's traveling mostly along the coast. Even 45 miles out is still pretty close to the coast. We have a shelf that's, I believe, not all that far out. So it's going to be deep water, but it's going to hit the shallow water fairly quick. Um, and then that's going to really slow it down. So, depending on whether you're calculating the 500 or the 20, and it really depends, it'll travel certain speed at one point and a certain speed at another point, and you got to be able to figure out which is going to be at what time. It can be tricky for those people who had the information, who apparently weren't sharing it with us at the time. It's not that difficult of a calculation to do, right? You plug in a few variables, throw in maybe some calculus, definitely algebra, but you might have to go through some calculus for this one. And you can give people a pretty good estimation of when a tsunami should hit almost right away, just based on the speed that these things travel in the water and the distance and the geography of the seafloor. It should be fairly easy, right? We should have algorithms already set up to do this, and yet they either just didn't have the information or they just didn't pass it on, which they should have. So, to me, that can be kind of important. So then I looked up the average height of a tsunami. So we're not talking the tallest tall or the shortest short, just average. Like, what is it on average? Average tsunami height in the open ocean is typically less than 1 meter. And that's why, if there's a tsunami, being out in a boat is actually one of the better places to be. Depending on the tsunami, depending on what kind of oscillation you're getting in the water, right? We're talking, this is average here, and an average of 1 meter is still, it's 3 feet. It's not nothing, right? But a boat's usually going to be able to handle a wave like that. If not, you probably shouldn't be in the middle of the ocean, right? So you're actually fairly safe in a tsunami event to be out in the water, at least as safe as you're going to be, right? As if you don't have the ability to just get back and get up as far away as you can and be safe. Riding it out in the water may be one of your better options. The typical tsunami height, once it gets to shore, though, is 1 to 3 meters, depending on the location of and the earthquake severity, obviously. But that's why I looked up average, right? So thanks for pointing out things that I know are factors. That's why I looked average. Anyways, that's a nitpicky thing for me, but still. So it says, but when approaching the land, tsunami can reach heights of around 30 meters or 100 feet. And this is saying in extreme cases, making the average typical tsunami height around 1 to 3 meters. Okay. I'm saying 100 feet in is an extreme tsunami. Most of the tsunamis that we're prepared for are 30 feet. They say if you're on a 30-foot bluff or higher, you're probably safe. And this is saying some of the more extreme ones are 100 feet. And this doesn't even include that 1,000-foot one, right? But it's saying the average is 1 to 3 meters. So unless you're getting something really extreme and from a mega thrust vault, it's going to be, barely noticeable. But again, keep in mind that even these smaller tsunamis are still several nuclear bombs worth of energy pouring through the ocean, right? You do not want to mess with these things. They seem small and harmless. They are not. The undercurrents pulling out all the water that has been displaced by the wave and then coming back in, extraordinarily dangerous forces here. Do not mess with it. Yes, I understand. It just kind of looks like a pansy. Enjoy it from a tall cliff where you know you're going to be safe. Don't be there if you don't know if you're going to be safe. That's why I ran like an SOB when he's like, dude, this is going to be taller than it's going to be safe. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be here. I'm not stupid. I want to die to see this wave, right? I was pretty sure I was safe until that guy freaked me out and I was looking at the buoy information and stuff. But yes, if you're sure you're going to be safe, you've done the math in your head, then yeah, go ahead. But don't go in the water, whether you think you're going to be safer or not. Just stay out of the water. I think it's like a 24-hour period of staying the hell out of the water, essentially. So I looked up something that's important for everybody to have. We'll definitely do a whole episode on this, but I looked up go bags. Looking up go bags, there's like brands and stuff that just all came up. I saw like 100 purses or something. So I typed in bug out bag. It's the same thing. So that's something that I wish I had all set up and ready. Like I said in the last one, it's a monetary thing, but once I get that taken care of, some decent employment under me, I'm definitely going to put together a good go bag. And not just because, hey, this incident happened and I realized, I've always known I should have one. But, this kind of put it a little bit more in perspective of, yes, it's a priority, but this, just tells me, yeah, make it more of a priority, right? Get this thing going, because the amount of time when I thought I only had 5 minutes, which turned out not to be true, but when I thought I only had 5 minutes, should have been plenty of time. And if we get notice of something truly big and we know that it's going to be like just horrible, 5 minutes might be all that you get. And if you could grab your stuff, grab your animals and everything, and be out the door in less than 5 minutes and be on the road to trying to get away, you're going to beat all the other traffic, which gives you a better chance at getting to someplace safe, regardless of how much time you have. So keep that in mind. And I looked these things up. There's a lot of, here's a bunch of sponsored stuff, but a lot of custom go bags and stuff like that that you can look up. Here's a dash bug out. Here's nutrient survival, serious survival, bug out bag academy. My suggestion is, and this is what I plan to do, look through all of these bags, look and see what things they all have in common, see what things are definitely brand specific. Like they might be pushing this or that because that brand handles it, where other ones won't even include that thing. So, oh, well, this is definitely not something that necessarily needs to be in there. They just think that you need to be in there. Or this is brand specific and they're the only ones who really carry this because other people don't have access to that brand and they're the only ones who make this. For example, the straws, the clean drinking water filter straws. I'm not saying this is the case with those. I'm just saying if you saw that none of the bags had them because somebody had a monopoly on the brand that makes those straws and they had it, definitely something you want to add to your bag anyways, even though they didn't all have that in common. So definitely keep an eye on things like that. Put together a list of things that you know you would need in just about any sort of circumstances you can think of, right? Because what you want to think is, I might be out of communication in the middle of what essentially is the wilderness with water and food that is not necessarily safe for whatever reason, because it's contaminated with radiation or whatever. So you're going to want to have all that. They suggest have all your important papers like laminated and with you, passports and all that, so that you can get all of it really easily. Throw that into like a little metal box or something, so you can always have that. I definitely think you should have important papers. You should know where they are. Probably have them so that you can just grab and take off. I don't think you should just have them in the go bag the whole time or anything like that, because unfortunately important papers are important all over the place. You can't have two passports. You can't have two driver's licenses. You can't have two of a lot of things that these important things are. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Making sure they're in a single place that you can get to them, though, easily, that makes a lot more sense, because then you could just grab it. Maybe, like a lot of people have suggested, throw it in a plastic baggie, like a Ziploc baggie, and then, be on your way. Throw it in your pocket or something if you can't open your go bag, or if you don't have an extra pocket because everything is just stuffed in there. Throw it in your pocket or something. And then there's what I call the supplementary bag, or the supplementary go kit. And that is one that you put in your vehicle. Especially if you have like a four-wheel drive, obviously. But any vehicle you have um, you have the possibility to be able to get out of a situation in your vehicle, in your car, in your whatever. So I suggest that you have something that you could put inside of your car or truck or whatever that you would not at all be able to carry. Because you can have a lot more supplies with you than you would initially have if you just had the backpack. And if you can take the vehicle, you want it. You don't want that vehicle to have stuff that you need in your go bag. Go bag needs to be independent, has nothing to do with this stuff. But I'm saying, okay, so you have some cans of food and water, blah, but now you have more cans of food and water, but they're in a car. Like, you cannot take that much in your bag. But if you happen to be able to take your car, you can take your car, you can have the extra stuff. Maybe you get stuck at a certain point while you're escaping or whatever, and you end up, being able to, park essentially. You could park, maybe you get a flat tire, whatever happens, you still have your vehicle. You've escaped, it's done its job, but you're probably not going to be able to take it any further. You could still camp out there and have, at least a couple of days, a week, or whatever of extra supplies before you have to move on because you have all those there in that vehicle that you normally wouldn't have. And maybe you can even swap out some things from your go bag that are like, okay, I know I don't need these things now. These are important things, and I totally could have needed them, but I don't now. We know what the situation is. We know where we are. We know what we will need, and it's going to be a few more of these things, and not as much of those other things. So that would be a good time to trade out with some of the supplies in your, expanded Go kit that maybe now you can customize a little bit more for that specific situation. And you may not be able to do that. You may not be able to get your vehicle out. You may not have a vehicle that works, whatever. You might not have that supplementary, and that's okay. Your go bag needs to function on its own. The supplementary is just, but if I can have more, this is what I'm going to have. If I can't, then that's fine. I'll do whatever I need to do with what I have. But it's always nicer to have more. So keep that in mind. Again, we will do a whole episode on it. I just looked up and there's just a ton of them, which is good. But my suggestion is you build your own. Just use a lot of these as a basis. The prices are going to be pretty exorbitant, especially for the materials, right? Like, I think you can get a set of like camping matches with a little metal screw top that's supposed to be like waterproof. I think I've seen them like for sale or something for like $1. Like sometimes I don't think I've seen them at the dollar store, but I've seen them, I've seen them expensive too, but I've seen them for like $1 or something like that. Not a huge amount. But if you get them in a custom go bag, those are probably going to be a $3 or $4 item because they're making money on it. If they didn't make money, they wouldn't sell it to you. They're not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. So everything's going to be more expensive through them. So if you just don't want to put in that kind of effort of doing it yourself, yeah, just get with one that seems really good. Better than nothing, for sure. Like if you say, hey, I got one from blah, blah, I love it, it's great, it has all the things I need, more power to you, man. I think it's great. But if you really want to maximize your chance of survival, it's really about taking a look at your own life and needs and making sure that those are taken care of. And I'm sure some of the custom ones have like a little, like a jar or something that you could put your pills in. That's like, okay, we know this won't come with your medications, but you need them. So it's just going to have like an extra container or something, or maybe a little pill container, the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday thing. And you just put your pills in that, right? So it may come with room for you to customize to a certain extent. But to me, it's just always easier to have it, custom, customized by you, right? You know where everything is, you know what everything is, the version of whatever it is that you want in there, not just the one that comes with you. Obviously, you can upgrade anything you get from anybody else. Tsunami.gov. And this is where I was looking. And there's a map, and there's little clicks that say alert threats and earthquakes. And there's a little check mark box for travel time. I'm actually going to unclick that I don't need. Auto update's fine. But I clicked on the DART system, is what I did. And what the DART system did was it gave me all these buoys that are out in the ocean. And so I clicked on these buoys because they were here in my region, in my area, right? I don't know if they're just like the active ones or whatever, but for some reason the map seemed to have more of them when I was looking before, so I don't know. But here's one that I was looking at. It's station 46404, West Astoria, 230 North NM, North something, North Meridian maybe, west of Astoria, Oregon. Which, when I looked at it on the map, it was not where it was. It was right outside of Eureka, California. Right? That's why I clicked on it. But either way, it gives water column height at station 46404. And it says here it has a little graph, and near the top is 2,740, and it says it doesn't say. It does not get, oh, meters. Here we go. 2,740 meters. That's the wave height. That's what this is saying. And it's saying the wave depth, though, is 2,737 meters. So what we're looking at here is 3 meters. It's still pretty high, right? It's in the middle of the ocean. It's probably bumping up and down 9 feet in some stormy wake or something. But here's the thing. I don't really know this. I'm not really extrapolating the information very well. I'm seeing 2,740 meters. That's what I'm saying. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Why are we having waves? And I'm not looking at the bottom numbers. So I'm thinking it starts at 0 and goes, you know what I mean? Even though it's right here in front of my page. Why is the tsunami 2,740 meters? What in the hell is going on? Like, this is unprecedented levels of, we're just SOL. There's just no way these numbers are right. And so I'm having a panic attack about, I don't really believe that this is it, but at the same time, maybe this is still telling me that this is a really bad wave. Like I don't know, right? And like I said, I'm fairly certain when I'm looking at it that what we're talking about is height from the sea floor, 2,740 meters above sea level. Well, no, not above, sorry, above sea floor level. So I believe that it's 2,740 meters above sea floor level. So here, what I'm reading is a differential of 3 meters. It's still 9 feet. That's still taller than a person. But that's the top of a wave to the trough of a wave. So that's top to bottom of a wave. 9 feet is not huge for a big old swell, right? Swells get way, way bigger than that. A boat made to go in the ocean is going to do just fine with that. Obviously the larger wave, the boats aren't even going to notice that. I mean, it's still a decent wave. And it's going to get bigger as it comes to the shore. If it has enough energy to reach, it may dissipate its energy out in the middle of the ocean too. But I'm seeing that and I'm not interpreting the data correctly. So when the guy said 30 feet, I'm like, okay, that actually kind of tracks with these insane numbers that I'm seeing, right? Let's see what else I saw. There was something in here about, here's an important notice to mariners, but there we go. Meteorological observations from nearby stations and ships. Not all stations depicted are operated. So this is, let's see, it's a lot of information here that it's giving. Water temperature, and I don't know what all these abbreviations even stand for, let alone anything else. Latitude, longitude, time, distance, height, I think. In degree T, no, that's HDG. So I don't know. So getting the height. I think this is it. WVHT. I think this is wave height. And it's giving me the same information. It's saying 9.2 feet, which is essentially 3 meters, like I was looking at. So it makes sense. And 9 feet is something where I could easily just be up on that bluff watching. No problem, no panic, just enjoy, right? Get another video that everybody thinks is underwhelming, draws up a bunch of attention to my website. Everything's good. But I didn't know to interpret these this way at the time. I did see a boat here that described, and this is, it's telling me when. It's not telling me who's doing the observation here that I can see. But, observations from ships and stuff like that would be good, right? It'd be like, oh, okay, cool. These are what the ships are saying. So this is station 46213, Cape Mendocino, California. So this is a different station, just giving its information. They're just sharing. I mean, which is good. That's a good, information to share. Okay, that was about doing. live streams that I want to do on my channel when I, again, sort out my financial situation is my little birds and stuff that I have on my channel. I want to get a live stream of those guys because I think that's always, it's something I always enjoy watching, the little live streams and stuff. And I don't see anybody doing it here in the Redwoods. So I thought that would be really a fun thing to do. So I'll get that going at some point. But I was looking that up and the page just popped up and I was like, huh, I wonder what. Oh, yeah, I know. So that's all the, like the collected websites and stuff that I had saved and marked for us to go through and go over some of that information to really talk about tsunamis in general, look at some data, and get a little bit better of an understanding. Especially, I think the important thing is gathering data in a crisis, especially if other people aren't just handing it to you. It is important to have access to something that you could look at and go, ah, okay, I understand what's going on, even when nobody else is explaining anything to me. I think that that map on tsunami.gov in the when you have the little dart system click and you can go to those buoys, especially if you could get buoys near where the quake happened or near where you are, depending on what time it is and depending on where the tsunami is supposed to be. It's a really good indicator of exactly what the size of the wave is, right? We just looked. The buoy said one thing, it got corroborating evidence, you know, hundreds of miles down the coast. And it was very similar data, right? So that's good. And it lets us know that the data is pretty reliable. Obviously, in a tsunami, you're going to have the wave information is going to be the important thing, not the median waves of the actual ocean on that particular day. You want to know what the tsunami wave itself is. So you're going to be looking for some specific spikes in the data there. But knowing that makes me feel a lot better now that I've got the information and confidence to be able to go there and to be able to look that up and be able to see, oh, that's the information there. And I know that it's hitting here at this moment because I could see the wave height was, 20 feet above what it should, or, 10 meters. No, I don't know what it'd be, like 8 meters or something like that. For 20 feet. No, whatever the thing is, it's somewhere around 20. Let's just say it's, 7, 8 meters. So, it's not 20 feet. It's a little bit bigger than that. But you see like a 7 to 8 meter jump, then that's really out of the ordinary. That's probably that tsunami going through. You can see what time it took, especially if you know where it came from, which again is information they're not necessarily always giving you, but that usgs.gov is good for getting where that earthquake came from. Tsunami.gov also told me where the earthquakes came from. So both of those places were good to get information about that. And then to keep an eye on it. And if you could do the calculation real quick, and sometimes you just got to Google how far is it from, blank to blank. And you could say, okay, for example, if there's a giant earthquake in Hawaii and you're in LA and you see that there's a station, say, in San Francisco, and because of the way the wave is rating out, it's going to hit San Francisco at a certain time before you. So it's going to hit those buoys first. So if you see it hitting those buoys, you can do a calculation how far from, say, Hawaii to San Francisco. You can then take the time as part of the equation and say, okay, it hit there at this time, it left at this time, it took this much time to get there. We're this far away from it, so it's not coming from it's not coming from San Francisco, but it's still coming from the same place, so it's traveling at the same speed as it did to reach San Francisco. So it's still on generally that same speed to get to you. You can do a quick basic calculation to say, okay, it's going to take this much longer to then get to us. So we've either gotten out of the way with plenty of time, or we need to get out of the way, and this is how much time we have. You can do some really quick calculations that way if you can find the available data. And I think those are really great resources to get the strength of the earthquake. If you can find out, and this wasn't something I found out there was actually somebody who did a video online. They streamed for about an hour. It was an hour after the earthquake, so it was a little bit too late to really be much of a forewarning or anything. It was more informative than anything else after the fact, but they were the ones who was telling me what kind of fault it was, a strike slip fault. Oh, okay, that's good to know. And he was also the one who said, "Hey, these don't really generate tsunamis," which makes sense when you know what kind of fault that is. Like, okay, yeah, no, makes sense. Thank you for information I wish I'd had before, right? Could have brought to my attention yesterday, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so that kind of information, if you have it, if you can maybe just Google that fault. If you know where it is, Google the fault system in that area. I don't know if there's a website specifically dedicated to listing all the faults, so you could just type, you know, San Diego and have most of the, at least the major faults pop up right under and around San Diego, and you can just see and it'll describe the types of faults they are. That would be very helpful. I don't know if that exists. If it does, somebody let me know because I'd love to be able to have that. So if you can combine that information with the other information you can have access to, you can insulate yourself from ignorance by getting the data straight from the horse's mouth, if you will. It's an alleviator of stress in an extremely stressful and desperate time. You get the chance to give yourself more information, give yourself more of a time frame to react and to know what kind of reaction you need to have. Is this I'm going to go out and I'm going to film it on the bluff and it's going to be fun? Is this it's not going to be noticeable enough for me to do anything? I'm staying home. Nobody's even going to know that it even hit. So I could say, hey, I filmed it, and nobody would ever know the difference because nobody's even really going to notice it's that small. Is it going to be large enough that it's like, I might be safe? Because I might be safe, it's not safe enough. If you think you might be safe or you're pretty sure that you'll be safe, that's not good enough. Get the hell out of there. If you're pretty sure you'll be safe, you probably don't need to go that far or panic that hard. Our entire town tried to evacuate. Now, I live in a town of a little bit less than 10,000 people. It wasn't like, LA or San Francisco or New York or something trying to evacuate, right? Still, 10,000 people trying to leave on the one road that we have going in and out of town, north and south, is just a horrible, horrible, ordeal to try to get through. So again, getting the information, having that go back so you get out of there quicker, going to help you a huge amount. Obviously, it also depends where you are. If you're in the middle of the damn city, you're probably not going to get out of there even if you leave immediately, because it takes you several minutes to get out to the outer parts of the town, where other people, even when they're late, are now on the road. So by that time, it's just, you need to find a closer spot. Any place within 20 minutes, I'd say, is reasonable, especially, even a driving 20 minutes. Try to find that. Try to find a way that gives you the best survival in that situation, because that may be all you have. I would not advocate trespassing, but I will not discourage you from knocking on a door of somebody who has a particularly tall home and saying, the tsunami's coming, it's going to hit, it's going to wash out most of our homes. Can I stay in your tall tower until the wave dissipates? Don't be afraid to do that. If that's all that you have, you know what I mean? It may be your only option, and you may get in, you may not. That's going to be dependent on that situation. So looking for the exit vectors now, coming up with a plan, deciding where you're going, how you're getting there, how everybody and everything is going to be collected to get the heck out of there. I'm lucky. I'm pretty much in this house with the only people and animals I need to take out. We got one dog right now, and my mom in the other room, who's she's getting older, but she's definitely moving around, capable of doing her own thing, getting her own backpack, all that. So I don't have to worry about dragging her out in a wheelchair or anything like that. So I'm like really really lucky in that regard. Some people are going to have families scattered throughout. School's going to be going on. Kids are visiting neighbors. If kids are visiting neighbors or there's school going on, your best bet is not to rescue your kids. I know that blows everybody's mind and think, F you, you don't know what it's like to have kids. So, go sit on it. I understand. I do. Here's the thing though. They're either safe and those institutions, which all have protocols for this, are going to keep your kids way safer than you're probably about to be, or they're all wiped out and there is literally nothing you can do about it. So the best thing is, A, to come up with a meeting place to say, look, if there is an emergency and you're not at the home and you have a way to get to such and such, we will meet up at this place. You know, there's a top of like a mountain nearby or something. Like, for example, there's a tall little foothill, right? Because the the football, the athletics team was known as the Foothillers because we were at the foothills of Cuyamaca Mountains, and which leads to the Sierra Nevadas and all that. So we have the foothills there, but they're still pretty tall. And we have one in particular. There's a lot of homes on it. It's called Mount Helix. There's an open air, like a there's an open air theater at the top with giant cross they light up for Christmas and stuff. It's religious. A lot of rich people live on the hill, but it's a tall hill. It's probably going to survive any and all tsunamis. So if you were to say, just for example, it's pretty far from like downtown San Diego. It's probably not where you're going to meet, but just as an example, if we ever get separated, or you're at school or at a friend's or something like that, and an emergency happens, we're all going to meet up at the top of Mount Helix. And let's say it's closed off, nobody gets to the top of Mount Helix, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. Wherever it is you can get to that's getting towards the top of Mount Helix, that's where your kids will be. They're not going to get any further than you are. All right? So, or maybe they somehow got to the top, but word is going to come down, nobody's coming up, they blocked it off, blah, blah, blah. The kids are going to go, oh, mom and dad are probably trapped down there. That's why I haven't seen them yet. Trust me, they're going to find you, you're going to find them, as long as you have this meeting place. And it's like, if we're separated, this is where we meet. And give them time. Don't expect them to be there right away. Don't even necessarily expect them to be there that day. You don't know what the systems are that are set up for their survival outside of what you know. Like the school might have this whole separate thing, but then it may be down to the teacher is taking some of the kids whose parents aren't there able to pick them up, and they're able to take them to like their cousin's house, right? They have a bed there, they can have some food, dinner, whatever. They're taking care of these kids. Their job is not make sure you see them and feel better. Like if they can, they're going to communicate for sure. Hey, let your mom and dad know you're okay. You're going to eat. They can meet you here if they want. We can meet somewhere else, but I'm making sure everybody eats first. I've got a ton of kids, not just their kids. You know what I mean? So don't be surprised if your kids don't just show up. They're probably being taken care of. It's just that their top priority is not reunite with parents. Their top priority is the safety of the children. So don't panic. Just understand we have this set. They're going to meet us at this place. You may be there for quite a while. If it's a communication blackout, just accept that you're going to be there as long as you need to be there. After all, it is a disaster. There isn't a whole lot of, fun things you're missing out on by being up there anyways. Be up there, make sure your go bag has appropriate, winter weather gear or whatever you need for the top of a mountain if that's where you're meeting. And make sure that they have that kind of thing, or if they don't, bring it with them. or sorry, bring it with you, so that when they get up there, you have their jackets and stuff. It's in your go bag, whatever the setup needs to be. So don't panic. Know that other places, churches, schools, friends, make sure the friends have a plan. You know what I mean? That's an important thing. Talk to the friends' parents, whatever. Just sit them down and say, look, we're not dragging you into our thing. We don't need you to have a go bag and be all prepared. It's a good idea. But what we do need is to know that you guys are going to take care of our kids if there's a disaster, and this is the meeting point. If something happens and we're not able to be together, maybe you're taking our kids to the zoo or something, and we're, in a business meeting all the way in a different part of town, this is the place where we're meeting. So please bring our kids there so that we can see them and know that they're all right. But obviously, the number one thing is keep them safe. When you can, then bring them. So those are some of the things I wanted to go over. Talk about the tsunamis, the danger, the safety aspects, and make sure everybody knows that they absolutely can be as safe as possible in those situations if you take the right steps and be prepared. All right, get the right information, get as much information as you can. Depends on if there's a communications blackout. If there is, just assume the worst. Get the heck out of there as quick as you can. Assume time is not on your side. We'll talk more next time. I don't remember which episode will be coming up next because, like I said last time, the order is going to be jumbled because I want to get these out a little bit sooner than they normally would be, just because of the timing of the tsunami that just happened, and making sure a lot of people get this information sooner as opposed to later. So I'll wrap this up and I'll give you guys my sign off and we'll be on our way. Will we survive our own apocalypse? Only time will tell.